Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Diamond, host of the BLK Directory Podcast, and we are back with another episode. I have a very special guest today, Miss Natakey Page Owens. She is the founder of the Pamela D Page Foundation, which focuses on domestic violence awareness. And I'm just so excited to have her here, and not only so we could touch on this topic, but really go deeper, not surface level. And hopefully, we know you guys are going to leave here with something. So welcome to the show, Natakey.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So I definitely want to get into your story. How did this foundation come about? Like, why is it so important to you? So let's go into more. So who is Natakey? Tell us about who you are.
Well, first of all, I am a child of God. I am a woman of God, first of all. And I am a mother of 3, a Mimi of 1, and I am an author. I'm a transformational speaker. I would like to say transformation because, I believe in people making transformation, not motivating for just a moment, but we like to see people transform. I have a bachelor's degree in business. I am also a hairstylist for 25 years this year. So that's just a little
25
about me.
years.
Yes, 25 years.
No, that's huge. My mom, I feel like you all have been in the industry for so long. So
yes.
I'm always all about that and giving y'all kudos. Because people, it's a lot of trust that you put in someone that's touching your head, your crown. So shout out to y'all because that is important work. But okay, so tell us about the Pamela Foundation, the Pamela D Page Foundation. Like, what is it? What is it about? And who do you all serve?
So Pamela D Page Foundation is an advocate organization for domestic violence survivors. So I lost my mother to domestic violence in 1986, and I was only 10 years old. And so I'm also a survivor. So I went through domestic violence for about maybe 4 or 5 years. And so I decided to, losing your mom at such a young age, you feel like there should have been more to her because she was only 29 at the time that she was killed. So I wanted her legacy to live on. She had struggles being a mother and battling with addiction, and then, these codependency of relationships, which led to her death. So I wanted, because I survived and she wasn't able to share her story, I wanted to be a part of sharing her story. And so I developed the foundation so that we can help other survivors to thrive after surviving. So that's exactly what we do. And so we we are nonprofit, so we raise money and we try to give back into the community for those who need our resources. And the main things that we have right now would be focused on housing, maybe like in a hotel, and then for therapy.
Okay. Yeah, that's amazing work that you're doing. I think domestic violence is something that's all around us. It's like there but not there, right? People may not talk about it, but it's like it's happening, and it takes one conversation to happen. If people feel comfortable, for people to be like, "Oh yeah, that happened to me too," and it's like, wow, like even in a family, how common it is in just one family, one house, well, not one household, but just within one family, because we're not talking about that kind of stuff, and then it comes up and it's like, wait, auntie went through that too, or cousin such and such went through that too. Like, did you run into that as you went through your own domestic violence? Yeah, did you see that? Like, did you find other people were going through that too, or did that come later when you found out that, like, we went through the same thing?
Well, it came later, as God began to deal with me on the inside. There, even after relationships, like there's some inner healing that has to happen because trauma as a young child, you don't realize how it affects you until you become an adult. And so as God started revealing certain things to me, because I'm supposed to be the generational breaker. curse breaker.
Mm-hmm.
Because yes, it's in the family. You have aunt, my grandma, uncles that have been a part of that you've seen. You growing up and you hear about it and you've seen certain things. So yes, it's generational, and people don't talk about it. And I like to say that I own my truth. And this is my family. All our families
Mm-hmm.
come with dysfunction, and it's okay to talk about these things, because if we don't talk about them, they can't, we can't resolve anything. It just keeps happening. And so I'm the brave one who's, speaking up about it and saying, yes, this is generational. This has happened in my family. So now what am I going to do to change the dynamics so that this doesn't happen to my grandbaby? So now that's who I'm
Yes.
concerned about, and because my children saw me coming up in there. So now they see me
Mm.
speaking out and sharing my story and telling others about, like, this doesn't have to be the end of our story.
And how empowering do you think it is now for your children to see, like, okay, mom's like, leading the pack here, trying to change the narrative, and not even change the narrative, but trying to provide help and a resource to people that are currently in it, or like you said, the people that they survived it, but how can we thrive now? Like, do you think you've made them proud? I'm sure you have.
I think I have, because they're big supporters. And even, my daughter, who's, her dad was the one that I was in the relationship with. And the very first time I shared my story, and she came, I told her, at any time that you want to move, leave the room, you can. But I do believe that God is calling me to do this. And she stayed the whole
Mm-hmm.
time. So that was good that she stayed, because I never talked against her dad at all. Her relationship with her dad is her relationship, and it should be just that. And him and I are just fine now. But we were so young back then, and so as you gotten older and you get to see different things, and the forgiveness and all of that comes, then we're in a different space. But that's still my story.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's caused me
Right.
to be where I'm at right now. But I think they're proud of me, and yeah, and I'm glad. I'm glad to be, an example for them. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Like, it is so, so, so nice to see. Um, when you have kids, it's like, oh, your child, you want them to grow and evolve, but it's cool to see parents can grow and evolve too in different ways. And it's really a good feeling to see you kind of step into that space and just you're helping others. It's not even just about you. Like, it's healing within itself, and you sharing your story over and over again. And then it's like not knowing what's going to resonate with someone else, and that's all you can hope for is like, hey, even if it helps one person, cool, but why do you think, I think one thing I hear a lot on social media and online is like, why do people stay? I think that's a very common thing. Can you talk about that more about, or at least from your own experience, or maybe, now you're hearing other people's stories. Like, what are you seeing with that? What's a common theme of you where you can pinpoint like, okay, I think this is why people stay?
Fear. One could be fear of being alone. You could have low self-esteem. I was told that I wasn't gonna, make it with 3 kids, like, or nobody would want me with 3 kids. So it could be the verbal things that are said to you that makes you believe that you're not able to do a certain thing, right? And that's how I was for a moment, like feeling like, well, how am I gonna make it? How am I gonna do this by myself? I got 3 kids. You got a house to run. You got,
Mm-hmm.
you have to work, and you are responsible for your children. So we stay for different reasons. It could be financially. He could be the breadwinner, and you scared to go out here on your own because you've been dependent on him. And then it's the part of not wanting to be alone. You know, having
Yeah.
somebody. It's like having a piece of man is better not, having a man at all, which we should definitely not believe that at all. But I believe peace is what we need. The PEACE. And not a piece of a man. And so it's
Mm-hmm.
different reasons that we stay in. The children. You want your children to grow up and be in the house with the father. I had 3 kids, and all my children have different fathers. So with that being said, I wanted to be with at least one of my children's father. I didn't want to feel like,
Mm-hmm.
or paint the picture, because people see what they see, but I know myself. But people look at you and say, oh, she got 3 kids, she got 3 different daddies, oh, she loose, she this, so it's the image that I guess you don't want people to look at you like, oh, she loose, that's what she does. And so I wanted to be with one of their dads, and I knew I wasn't supposed to be in it, but I tried to stay for the sake of keeping my family. So you probably fight in your head over and over about different ways of wanting to get out, and then why not getting out, not getting out. So I believe those are some of the reasons. I mean, I'm sure there are probably others. They're probably afraid of their life. They might have been threatened. If you leave me, I'm gonna kill XYZ. You're just fearful. So thank God I didn't have that situation. But you just never know what the reasons are. But we find different ways of talking ourselves out of leaving when we really want to leave.
Yeah. So for you, what did abuse look like in your household with your ex-husband? Like, was it verbal? Was it physical? What did it actually look like? What was that day-to-day experience like?
So it was worse when I was pregnant with my daughter. He would get drunk. He would come home and arguments would start from nowhere, because I'm an introvert, so I stay home a lot. Like, I was good with being home. I knew he would be out, hoping that he would come home. But when he came home, he would be upset about whatever he's upset about. I'm not sure, but it would be taken out on me. I can remember a night, and I talk about this in my book, where he comes home and I'm in bed, and I don't even know what the argument was about, but I remember getting choked, and I remember getting thrown from the bed pregnant, and all I could think about was, what about my baby? And even then, that was enough to leave, because now you're endangering our child. But I wasn't strong enough to walk away from it. It's verbal abuse. I was called stupid. You've been called every name but a child of God. Telling me that nobody was going to want me. And then spiritual, because I still always had God as a foundation in my life. Like, thank God for my grandma, because she planted that foundation for me. So I knew there was a God. I didn't have a relationship with him, but I knew him. And
yeah,
I still tried to go to church or keep God in my life, or, say prayers only when I was going through. Of course, that's what we do sometimes. But I know God was still listening to me. But he would always say little stuff about, oh, you supposed to be a Christian, but XYZ. You supposed to be a Christian, but blah, 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 blah. So it'd be things that start making you think, well, am I a Christian?
a
Do
lot of
God love me?
gaslighting.
Yeah, like, do God love me? So he would do certain things like that. And but the majority of it was verbal, and or do certain things where he'll try to provoke me to do, to probably hit him, or to get mad so he could leave the house to do whatever he wanted to do. So that's how that was. Yeah.
That's interesting. So let's take a little bit of a turn and talk about the role of family. So back then, when all of this was going on, well, how long was the abuse going on? Let's start with the timeline.
So let's see. We met in 98, and I had my daughter in 99.
And how old were you?
So I was 22, I think. Yeah, 22. Because I had my son at 21, so 22. And we, I had my daughter in 99, and we split all together in 2004.
Okay.
He left me in 2004.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So during this time, what was the role of your family? Did they know you were going through abuse? Did you ever ask for help? Because that's always something of like, did you tell someone? But, we talked before, sometimes you could tell people and that don't mean they're going to help. Like, I think it's different dynamics to, Black culture, just all sorts of stuff. So let's talk a little bit about the role of family. And did you feel like you had someone that you could go to for help, or was it all on you to help yourself?
Honestly, I feel like it was all on me because nobody was talking about it. I think they knew a little bit. I didn't talk a lot about it. Like I never went to them and said, "Oh, he's doing this to me." Um, but one, I know my grandmother knew. God rest her soul. Um, and I did call once and ask could I come home, and she said, "I'll call you back," and she never did. So that was her way of saying
Wow.
no without saying no. And that was hurtful. So that meant I was gonna have to deal with whatever I had to deal with because, we married. So she old school more than likely. She went through abuse too with my mom's dad, so she knew what that life was like, but they never had that talk. Even
Mm.
having an aunt who also went through the same thing. Nobody sat down and talked about it. Nobody talked about it. And I don't know if it was embarrassment because and that you feel embarrassed, because people ask the question, well, why would you stay if somebody did that to you? Why would you stay with somebody that does that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there are many reasons why we stay. It doesn't mean it's right, but those are our reasons. So you fear being judged about why you did.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe that could have been some of their issues, and they didn't want to relate to me to be able to say, you know what, Natakey, this is what happened to me. You might want to be mindful of this, even if they didn't tell me to
Yeah.
leave, but they were giving me some kind of encouragement. And I think that's the main thing, encouraging people that are in those situations without giving them a whole bunch of things to do. Because, a lot of bottom line is they're not going to leave until they're ready. But if they know
Yeah.
that they have the support when they're ready, that means that's volumes for them.
Yeah, and all that makes me think about is like generational trauma because that's what it is. It's like it's crazy how things can run in a family, and it's crazy how sometimes you'll never know until way later. Oh, 3 generations went through this because some people talk about it, and some people don't, and you're like, I thought I was the only one. We could have been coming together to be stronger, but it's like those societal norms of like you said, some people not trauma bonding, but like, oh, because you went through it, you can handle it. I got through it too. Be
Mm-hmm.
stronger. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Stop crying. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's so interesting, but I think it's very common.
Mm-hmm. And being
I
told
think it's very common.
to suck it up, you strong. Look, we're not always strong. This is the bottom line. Like, we're not always strong, and you need a support
Mm-hmm.
system. You need somebody to encourage you, to let you know that there is life after trauma, and we can get out of this, and we want to get out
Mm-hmm.
safely. So we need to talk about it more.
I think what's interesting too is like, and I think this is like talked about a little bit more on social media nowadays, which is the fact that the abuser, their families like enable them, like they turn a blind eye. Oh, that's my son, or I'm not even gonna say son, that's my child, because
It
nowadays
can
I
go
do
both
think it's
ways.
important to
Yeah.
also show it can go both ways. It's
Mm-hmm.
been going both ways. I think it's just
Mm-hmm.
a little bit more out there with when
Exactly.
a man is kind of doing the abusing, but it's all sorts of people on both sides getting abused in relationships. But it is interesting when people enable their child or turn a blind eye, or well, what did you say to make him hit you, or what did you do to, and it's the craziest thing. And now we're seeing where, especially like the celebrity versions of everything, well, why are they coming out 20 years later? Well, why didn't they say something before? I'm actually curious about your thoughts on that, because I'm sure we see it all the time now.
Yeah, and I kind of go back and forth with that too, because I do believe we tell at least one person, you know, um, and maybe it's because they're afraid. They're just afraid of people, or what people gonna say. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
the big thing because of social media. When people get up here and paint this beautiful picture, they got it going on. Their life is just so, no worries and this, that. So then if they come out and you like,
Mm-hmm.
you did what? And you went through what? So they're afraid about what everybody gonna say. And we gotta just not care what
People
people
get
say.
crucified
Yeah,
for
like,
speaking out, and they wonder why people don't speak out. It's like,
because
Yeah, when
some
it
people are
comes to
mean.
like public figures,
Yes.
normal people, like I think you still kind of deal with it, but it's like the public figures, it's like if you have an image in your head of like, no, this celebrity would never do this, it's like
Mm-hmm.
no one wants that image tainted. That's really what it is. No
Mm-hmm.
one wants that image tainted because it's like if you accept what the accusation is, it makes our world a little bit darker if you think about it. It's not always so perfect and peaceful. And it's like that reminder of how, ugly our world can be when reality is going on, regardless whether it's put out there or not. But it's almost like it's like no room for that. People are like, no, go somewhere else with that. And especially if you do it after the fact. Well, why didn't you say something when it happened? And then sometimes you'll see where there actually is a police report and a track record, but people still are like, well, I don't know. It's very, 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 very interesting to me.
And then we put our own this image on people or our expectations on certain people. So we're let down by what we think about them. You know how we put people on a
Mm-hmm.
pedestal, right? So if you put me on a
Yeah.
pedestal because you think I'm perfect and I don't do nothing wrong, and then I'm put out here and I've done something wrong, so now you're disappointed by your expectations out of me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it is. We get, people that watch the social media or the celebrities or whoever, and then when you see that happen, you just like in disbelief. But that's just because of the picture that you painted and the pedestal that you placed them on.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It's like we're kind of feeding into that because of how we view people.
Mm-hmm.
And I always say like anyone could do wrong. Like it's just one of those
Nobody is
things
exempt
where
from exactly.
yeah, and it's
Mm-hmm.
hard because it's a lot of he said she said as far as in today's time where it's like now you do have the vibe where people are guilty without the proof now without court. It's like
Mm-hmm.
what? Like it's kind of like I see the extremes on both ends, and all you could do is just hope that we could just have less and less of this stuff going on, because I think it goes back to people have anger issues, no self-control. A lot of people seen trauma from their own parents growing up, and they're kind of acting on that. Like it's probably plenty of reasons of why people do the things that they do. But it's just I'm happy that you have a foundation now that can all you can do is for the people that are in it. It's like, okay, how can we get you some help, get you some resources? So let's talk about the foundation.
Okay.
How's it been going? When did the foundation start? Let's talk about the beginnings of like when you've done that healing to where it's like, okay, I'm ready to help others.
So my healing started in 2015 when I totally surrendered to Christ. So when God started showing me different things, even myself, because we like to blame people for our own hurt, our happiness and stuff like that. And I had to learn not to do that. I had to own my own stuff. And that's when I started looking at me and how can I have done something differently, right? So when COVID
Mm-hmm.
hit, so that's what 5 years later, I've been doing the work in me, working on me. And I kept asking because I was out of work for like 2 months. So I'm asking God, I'm like, okay, now what am I supposed to be doing? Because I got a routine. I'm used to getting up, going to work, working out, doing. So I had a routine. So now I'm sitting at home like, what in the world I'm going to do? So I knew that I wanted to still do something with domestic violence. And so I did a walk the first year. I did not have my foundation, but we did a walk, and people showed up because I know people probably wanted to get out the house. So people showed up, and then it started from there. I ended up getting my 501c3, and so this will be our fourth walk this year. And so I call it Life After Trauma because I wanted people to see that we can still thrive after domestic violence. Like you can thrive. But we do have to do the work. We do have to own our own stuff, and we have to do the work in order to heal. So the foundation is established to raise awareness. I want to get out here and talk about it because I'm still young. I mean, I'm still fresh in it. So I'm still learning some things on how to, put ourselves out here and So right now it's just building relationships with the community to let them know that we're here. Hopefully partnering with others to help be a part of our resources. My main goal, though, is to actually start a program where we can guide the women through. So that means whatever assessing what they need and meet them right there with what they need, whether that's going back to school, finding a better job, whether they're needing a bank account to save money, because some people may not be ready to leave. So we're prepping them to leave, and then they could feel secure about when they're leaving. So we're building, working on that, and so and hopefully too, I'm looking for a shelter, where they can have their own space with their children or without children or without children, but they got their own space and they don't have to share and look at somebody else while they're going through, because that'll make them go back home too. You're open, you're seeing everybody going through some of the same things, and you ready to go home because it's more comfortable at home, right? Whether you going through something or not, you want to go home. So we want to build that so they have a safe space where they can just take their time and get through the trauma. So that's what we're working towards.
Yeah, and I love that. That's on the groundwork, important, it's timely. It's like, okay, what do you need? And before we wrap up, I just want to ask you, what are some tips, in case we have anyone that's listening that may either be a parent or a family member of someone that's going through it, or they may be the person that's going through it, and say they're not quite ready to leave, but they're doing that work. They're starting to like really shift their mind to getting prepared. What are some things? I know you talked about the bank account, but what are some things that should be their first set of moves, I guess, of like, all right, let me kind of start preparing?
I would say make sure they got that circle of support. They got some people that they can trust, that understand exactly what they're going through. They're not talking behind their back, but are really there for them. They have that already set up. So when they're ready to go, they already know they got their support system. They got whatever those needs are. If they got to find another place, if they got to move, their kids are good. Like, get all of that in place. And but I think that's just the main thing, just having your support system in place. So you can, when I leave, I'm leaving. Because on average, it takes 7 times for somebody to leave before they actually leave.
Ooh, that's good to know. 7 times.
7 times. And so you're back and forth all the time about, and you do, because you battle about, not, like I told you before, you don't have nowhere to go, or you just not you got your own space back at home. So you find all these reasons to go back. Or he'll come and apologize 1,000 times. I'm sorry. Or of course they'll blame you for them, acting the way that they act. But whatever the reason is, they'll still, try to get you to come back. So we just got to keep in mind for the people that's just watching their loved ones or their friends that may be going through it, keep them encouraged. Just remind them of who they are. They might have lost sight of who they are and whose they are, who they belong to, So they remind them that they can do it. They need to be encouraged, not judged, not don't tell them about what you would do, because you don't know what you would do. And maybe you would get up and leave the first time. That's good for you. But what about the one that can't? So don't make them feel bad about the decision that they make for staying. Encourage them in it. And just keep praying for them and keeping them covered. And just, whenever you're ready, I'm here. Just remind them that whenever you're ready, I'm here. That's it.
I love that. It's giving that love and that grace.
Yes.
And
yes, that we all need.
That 8th time they may be ready, and they're going to need to feel like, okay, I have a plan, I'm ready. And you have someone on the other end ready to help you execute the plan of like, all right, cool. Got you some stuff, some clothes, bank account, whatever it is. Yeah. So that's so good. Well, I'm just so happy that we were able to do this. I hope that someone listening is encouraged to know that there is life after trauma. And just how we can all be just less judgmental, more supportive, and just give grace when we can. So please let everyone know like how they can find you, where they can find you, and how they can support and join the movement and be a part of it.
So they can follow us on Instagram or on Facebook at Pamela D Page Foundation. They also can go to our website, which is pdpfoundation.com, and they can donate to help out. We do have an event that's coming up in October if they would like to support. We're looking for sponsors, any monetary that will help cover the event. It will be at the Rocky Mount Event Center here in Rocky Mount, North Carolina. And so we'll be doing a hair and fashion show, just raising awareness, bringing people out to say let's stop domestic violence, and that would be great if they could help out. We're also doing a 5K walk that morning, so yeah, come out and walk or run, and just show support to our community and those that and let's be a voice for the voiceless.
Yes. Thank you. Y'all heard it here. So I will make sure when this episode comes out to add her links and everything to the show notes. That way you can see the website and everything, social media pages. Again, thank you so much, Natakey. I just really appreciate you taking the time and just educating us on domestic violence and just ways that we can get involved and not always be on the sidelines, but like, okay, what can we do? And I think it helps just having this educational component of like you said, if these conversations aren't happening, or at least they're happening right now, right? People are listening to this podcast. This may be the first time they're hearing it in this kind of setting. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. And thank you for having me. I appreciate it.